All right, Reddit, strap in. This is a throwaway account for reasons that are about to become very, very obvious. If you saw that clickbait headline floating around, yeah, that was my life yesterday. But to understand the explosive finale, you need to understand the lead up. I need to vent, and frankly, I don't know who else to tell because my entire social circle was in that reception hall. My name is Michael, 29, and up until about 24 hours ago, I was supposed to be marrying the love of my life, Jessica, 27. We'd been together 5 years, living together for 3. I honestly thought we were solid. We were that couple everyone said was meant to be. The last 6 months, however, have been absolute torture. Wedding planning turned Jessica into someone I barely recognized. I'm talking full-blown stereotypical bridezilla mode. Nothing I did was right. The napkins were the wrong texture, my groomsmen were too rowdy at the fitting, and my breathing seemed to annoy her. She was constantly snapping at me, belittling my opinions on our day. "You just don't get the vision, Michael," she'd hiss, rolling her eyes whenever I tried to help save money or simplify things. Because she was so overwhelmed, she hired this high-end wedding planner named Chris. Chris was slick, too slick, looking back on it now. He was always available for her, texting her at midnight about centerpieces or whatever. Suddenly, Jessica was spending 3 or 4 nights a week at the studio with Chris, finalizing details until late into the night. I feel like such an idiot in hindsight. The red flags were practically slapping me in the face, but I was too busy trying to keep the peace to notice. First off, our sex life totally died about 3 months ago. Every time I tried to initiate anything, she had an excuse. She was too stressed, her stomach hurt from anxiety, or she just felt gross. Yet, weirdly, she was buying dozens of pairs of expensive new lingerie that I never saw her wear. Secondly, her phone became Fort Knox. She used to leave it lying around unlocked. Suddenly, it never left her hand. If I walked into a room while she was smiling down at the screen, she'd immediately flip it face down and get incredibly defensive. "God, Michael, do you have to hover? Can I have 5 seconds of privacy without you breathing down my neck?" she'd snap. I chalked it all up to pre-wedding jitters. I told myself that her bitchy attitude and the lack of intimacy were just temporary casualties of the stress. I figured once the ring was on and the party was over, I'd get my sweet, fun Jess back. I was dead wrong. The nightmare was just getting started. So, flash forward to yesterday morning. It's the day before the wedding. The rehearsal dinner is scheduled for 7 p.m. I'm running around like a headless chicken, picking up my tux, grabbing the rings from the safe deposit box, and handling last-minute payments. Jessica had kicked me out of the apartment at 10 a.m. She claimed she needed the space for her hair and makeup trial and didn't want me seeing her. She was in a foul mood, screaming at me because I hadn't taken the trash out fast enough. "Just get out, Michael. You're useless. Go bother your idiot friends," she yelled, literally shoving me out the door. I went to my best man, Dave's house, to crash for a few hours. We were sitting there, drinking a beer, trying to calm my nerves. I was venting to Dave about how mean she'd been, and he was giving me the standard, "It's just stress, she loves you" speech. Then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from our living room security camera. We have one of those indoor cams to keep an eye on our dog, Buster, when we're at work. Usually, we turn it off when we're home, but in the chaos of her shoving me out, she must have forgotten it was on. Or maybe she was just that arrogant. I opened the app, expecting to see the dog jumping on the couch, or maybe Jessica yelling at a bridesmaid. Instead, I saw Chris. They walked into the frame together. Jessica was wearing one of those silk robes she'd bought for the honeymoon, and Chris was already unbuttoning his shirt. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up on Dave's carpet. I watched, frozen, as the woman I was supposed to marry in 24 hours pushed the wedding planner onto our sofa, the sofa I bought. "Are you sure he's gone?" Chris asked. I could hear them perfectly. The audio on those things is terrifyingly clear. "Yeah, I kicked him out hours ago," Jessica laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound I'd never heard before. God, he's so pathetic. He was practically crying because I yelled at him. He's such a soft boy, Chris. I need a real man. I felt like I'd been punched in the throat. I watched as she straddled him. I won't go into graphic detail because I don't want to vomit again, but they had sex, right there, in the middle of the afternoon. And the worst part wasn't even the sex. It was the conversation during and after.
Is he going to be surprised by the bill for the extra flowers? Chris asked, smirking as he buttoned his pants back up later. Who cares? Jessica replied, fixing her hair in the mirror. His parents are paying for half, and he'll just put the rest on credit. Once we're married, his credit is my credit. I just need to get through tomorrow without puking when I have to kiss him.
She literally said that. I just need to get through tomorrow without puking. I sat there in Dave's living room, staring at my phone screen, shaking uncontrollably. The video ended as they moved to the bedroom. Dave looked at me, terrified. Mike, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I didn't say a word. I just hit download on the video file. I saved it to my phone, then emailed it to myself, then backed it up to the cloud. I wasn't sad anymore. The sadness evaporated the second she called me pathetic. All that was left was a cold, hard rage. I looked at Dave. I need your laptop, and I need you to keep your mouth shut. The wedding was still on, but the script was changing. Walking into that rehearsal dinner was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. I deserve a damn Academy Award for not walking up to Chris and smashing a wine bottle over his head the second I saw him. The dinner was at this fancy Italian place. Jessica was already there, wearing white, of course, holding court with her bridesmaids. She looked beautiful, which just made the rage burn hotter. When she saw me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. She marched over, grabbed my arm, and dug her nails in. "You're late," she hissed through a fake smile. "And fix your face. You look like you're going to a funeral. Do not embarrass me tonight, Michael. My parents put a lot of money into this." "Sorry, traffic," I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. "I'm just tired." "Well, wake up," she snapped, then immediately pivoted to greet her aunt with a squeal of delight. The switch was instant, terrifying.
Then came Chris, the planner. He walked up with a clipboard, looking efficient and helpful. "Hey, Michael, big day tomorrow, buddy. Everything is set. Just need to run through the procession order one more time." He held out his hand, the same hand I'd watched gripping my fiancée's hair on my living room 4K feed 3 hours ago. I stared at his hand for a second too long. "Thanks, Chris," I said, barely touching his palm before pulling away. I felt like I needed to dip my hand in bleach. "You've really gone above and beyond for us." He smirked. I swear to God, he smirked. "Just doing my job, man. Jessica has been a very demanding client, but very rewarding." I almost lost it right there. I had to physically bite my tongue. The dinner was torture. I sat there while people made toasts. My dad cried, talking about how proud he was of the man I'd become. Jessica's dad, a great guy who I actually really like, talked about welcoming a son into the family. Jessica sat there dabbing fake tears, holding my hand, squeezing it lovingly whenever people were looking. Under the table, she kicked me. "Smile more," she texted me while sitting right next to me.
But I had a mission. Halfway through the night, I slipped away. I told Jessica I had the runs, which she rolled her eyes at. Gross, Michael, TMI. I went to find the AV guy who was setting up the tech for the actual wedding reception at the venue next door. I found the guy, a young kid named Tyler. He was testing the sound system. "Hey man," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Look, I have a surprise for the bride. You know the slideshow that's supposed to play during dinner? The love story one with the baby pictures?" "Yeah, I have the file loaded," Tyler said. "I made some edits," I lied. "Added a special message at the end from her late grandmother. It's a surprise, so I don't want her to know I touched it. Can we swap the file?" I held out a USB drive. On it was a file named jessica.michael.lovestory.final.mp4. It started with 30 seconds of nice photos, just enough to lull everyone into a false sense of security, and then cut hard to the footage from my living room.
Tyler shrugged. "Sure thing, boss. It's your wedding." He plugged it in, dragged the file over, and replaced the original. "You want to test it?" he asked, his mouse hovering over the play button. My heart hammered against my ribs. If he played it now, the gig was up. "No," I said, a little too loudly. I forced a laugh. No, I want the reaction to be genuine. It plays, right? "Yeah, format looks good." "Perfect. Don't play it until the DJ announces the video. Promise me." "You got it." I walked back to the rehearsal dinner, sat down next to my cheating fiancé, and finally, for the first time all day,
I smiled for real. Finally, Jessica whispered, sipping her wine, you stopped looking like a miserable prick. Yeah, I said, taking a sip of my own drink. I just realized tomorrow is going to be unforgettable. The morning of the wedding was surreal. I woke up in the hotel room with Dave, and for a split second I forgot. Then the memory of the video hit me like a freight train. I wasn't getting married today. I was executing a hit. Jessica texted me at 6 a.m. Don't forget to shave that patch on your neck you always miss, and bring my charger to the bridal suite now. Do not see me. Leave it at the door. No good morning. No, I can't wait to marry you. Just orders. The first look photos were a disaster of my own making, but Jessica didn't notice. I was supposed to turn around, see her in the dress, and cry tears of joy. When I turned around, I did cry, but it was out of sheer frustration and rage. She took it as a compliment. Finally, some emotion, she scoffed, brushing a tear off my cheek with a manicured nail, careful not to smudge her makeup. Don't touch the dress, Michael. Your hands look sweaty. She looked stunning. That was the sickest joke of all. She looked like a princess, innocent and pure in a $5,000 dress that I paid for. But when I looked at her, all I could see was her legs wrapped around Chris on our couch. Speaking of Chris, he was everywhere. He was fixing her train, handing her water, whispering inside jokes in her ear while I stood 3 feet away like a prop. At one point, he walked up to me and adjusted my boutonniere. Looking sharp, groom, he said, patting my chest. She's a handful today, but we got this. I stared right into his eyes. Yeah, we sure do. The ceremony was an out-of-body experience. Standing at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle to that string quartet. Everyone was sniffling. My mom was dabbing her eyes. Her dad looked so proud. I felt like I was the only person awake in a room full of sleepwalkers. Then came the vows. This is where I almost lost it. Jessica had written her own vows. She pulled out a little card, cleared her throat, and looked at me with those big, lying eyes. Michael, she began, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. You are my safe harbor, my best friend. I promise to be faithful to you, to honor you, and to put you above all others. I promise that no matter how hard life gets, I will always be your partner in everything. You are the only man I have ever truly loved. I felt bile rise in my throat. Faithful, honor, only man. It took every ounce of willpower not to scream, "You fucked the party planner yesterday, right there in the church." But I didn't. I had to wait. The payoff had to be public. It had to be undeniable.
When it was my turn, I kept it short. I couldn't lie like she could. I just said, Jessica, today is the day the world sees who you really are. I promise to give you exactly what you deserve. She smiled, thinking I was being poetic. The guests awed. Chris gave a thumbs up from the back. The priest pronounced us man and wife. He told me to kiss the bride. I leaned in and pecked her on the lips for a millisecond, pulling back before she could deepen it. Eager for the reception? She whispered, annoyed by the quick kiss. You have no idea, I replied. We walked back up the aisle, hand in hand, past the smiling faces of our friends and family. We hopped into the limo to go to the reception venue. The second the door closed, she dropped my hand like it was burning her. God, my feet are killing me, she groaned. And did you see your cousin? That dress was hideous. Chris was right, we should have uninvited her. I just looked out the window, clutching the phone in my pocket. Just 1 more hour, I told myself. Just wait for the projector.
The reception was held in this massive renovated barn venue that cost more than my first 2 cars combined. It was stunning. Fairy lights everywhere, expensive floral arrangements that Chris probably upsold us on, and an open bar that was already getting a heavy workout. We did the grand entrance. The DJ screamed our names, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, and everyone cheered. We walked into some upbeat Bruno Mars song. Jessica squeezed my hand for the crowd, beaming that million-watt smile. "Don't trip," she hissed through her teeth as we navigated the dance floor. "And stand up straight, you're slouching." We went straight into the first dance. It was agonizing. We were swaying to Perfect by Ed Sheeran, a song I now hate with the fire of 1,000 suns. Holding her close, smelling her expensive perfume, knowing where she'd been 24 hours ago, it took everything I had not to push her away.
"You're being weird," she whispered against my shoulder where no one else could see. "You're stiff as a board. Relax, Michael. People are watching. At least pretend you're happy to be here." "I'm just overwhelmed," I lied. "It's all so beautiful." She pulled back slightly, looking smug. "I know. Chris and I did an amazing job. You're welcome." Chris and I, not we. Speaking of Chris, he was standing near the DJ booth, headset on, looking like the commander of a battleship. He gave us a little salute as the song ended. I wanted to vomit. We sat down at the head table. Dinner was served, some fancy steak and lobster thing I couldn't even look at, let alone eat. I downed 3 glasses of champagne in about 20 minutes. Dave, my best man, was sitting next to me. He looked like he was about to pass out. He was pale, sweating, and kept checking his watch.
"You good, man?" I asked him quietly. "I think I'm gonna have a heart attack, Mike," he whispered back. "Are you sure about this? We can just leave. We can just walk out the back door right now." "No," I said, cutting into my steak just to have something to do with my hands. "We finish this." The speeches started. The maid of honor, Jessica's sister, went on for 10 minutes about how Jessica has the biggest heart and how she's never seen 2 people more perfect for each other. Then it was Dave's turn. He stood up, shaking like a leaf. He kept it short. "To Michael and Jessica, life is full of surprises. May you both get exactly what you deserve." He downed his drink in one gulp and sat down. Jessica frowned. "That was weird," she muttered to me. "He's drunk already, embarrassing." "He's just emotional," I said. Finally, the moment arrived. It was 8:30 p.m.
The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. "All right, everyone, if I could get your attention to the main screen, the groom has prepared a special presentation, a look back at the beautiful love story that brought us here today." The lights in the barn dimmed. A hush fell over the room. 150 guests turned their chairs toward the giant projection screen that had been set up on the stage. Jessica leaned over to me, looking genuinely surprised. "You made a video? I thought we cut that to save time." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, turning my chair so I could watch her face instead of the screen. "I think you're going to love the ending." "Aw," she said, resting her hand on my knee. "That's actually really sweet, Michael." The music started, some acoustic cover of a Beatles song. The screen flickered to life. Baby photos. Me in a bathtub as a toddler. Crowd, "Aww." Jessica in a tutu at age 5. Crowd, "So cute." Our first date selfie. The proposal photo. It was perfect, sentimental, sweet. Jessica was smiling, leaning her head on my shoulder. "You did good, babe," she whispered. I checked my watch. 28 seconds in. "Just wait," I whispered back, sliding my leg away from hers. "Here comes the best part." The music cut out abruptly. The screen went black for a split second. And then, the time-stamped footage from my living room appeared.
It took about 3 seconds for the room to process what they were seeing. At first, there was a ripple of confused laughter. People thought it was a skit, or maybe a behind-the-scenes blooper reel of us getting ready. The angle was wide, showing the whole living room. But then, the audio kicked in. The speakers in that barn were top tier, usually meant for blasting bass-heavy dance music. Instead, they projected the crystal-clear sound of my front door slamming and Jessica's voice. "Are you sure he's gone?" On the screen, 20 feet high, my wife, still in her wedding dress sitting next to me, walked into the frame on the screen wearing her silk robe, followed immediately by Chris. The laughter died instantly. You could physically feel the air get sucked out of the room. It went from a joyous wedding reception
to a crime scene in the blink of an eye. Jessica froze. Her hand, which had been resting on my knee, clamped down hard. Her nails dug into my skin through my tuxedo pants.
"Michael?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What is this? Turn it off." I didn't move. I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, taking a sip of my champagne. On screen, Jessica dropped her robe. A collective gasp went through the room. It was a sound I'll never forget. 150 people inhaling in pure shock at the exact same moment. My mother let out a short, high-pitched scream. Somewhere in the back, a glass shattered against the floor. Then came the sex. It wasn't romantic. It was raw, animalistic, and completely undeniable. There was no way to spin this. There was no, it's out of context. It was my wife, screwing the wedding planner, on the couch where my nephews sit when they come over.
Jessica scrambled up from her chair. She looked like a trapped animal. She waved frantically at the DJ booth. "Cut it! Turn it off! Tyler, turn it off!" she screamed, her voice cracking into hysteria. But Tyler, God bless him, was nowhere to be found. I'd slipped him an extra $200 earlier to take a bathroom break the second the video started. The laptop was unmanned, so the video played on. The sex on screen stopped, and the couple on the couch began to talk. This was the dagger. This was the part that turned the room from embarrassed to murderous. The voice of Jessica on the screen boomed through the silent barn. God, he's so pathetic. He was practically crying. I need a real man. I turned to look at Jessica standing next to me. Her face was a mask of pure terror. She looked at me, her eyes wide and wet, and for the first time in 6 months, she looked small. "Michael, please," she begged, grabbing my shoulder. "It's not, I can explain." Then the screen Jessica delivered the final blow. "I just need to get through tomorrow without puking when I have to kiss him." That was the breaking point. Jessica's father stood up so fast, his chair flew backward and crashed onto the floor. He looked like he was having a stroke. His face was purple. He stared at the screen, then at Chris, who was trying to slink away near the exit, and then at his daughter. The video finally ended, freezing on a frame of Chris buttoning his shirt while Jessica laughed. The barn was dead silent. No music, no chewing, just the sound of Jessica's heavy, panicked breathing and the low hum of the projector fan. I slowly placed my champagne glass on the table. The clink of the glass against the wood sounded like a gunshot. I stood up. I picked up the microphone that had been left on the table for the speeches. I looked at Jessica, then out at the crowd of horrified faces. "Well," I said, my voice echoing slightly, "I think that clears things up."
I didn't yell, I didn't scream. I think that terrified them more than if I had thrown a chair. My voice was calm, almost bored. "I'd like to thank you all for coming," I said into the mic. "I know many of you traveled a long way. I'm sorry you had to witness that, but I figured it was better you saw the truth now rather than finding out in 6 months when we're filing for divorce." Jessica lunged for me. She actually tried to grab the mic from my hand. Stop it right now, Michael. You're drunk. He's lying," she shrieked, her face a mess of running mascara and snot. She was still trying to lie, even after everyone had just seen her in 4K resolution. "That video is fake. It's AI. He made it up because he's jealous." I easily stepped out of her reach. She looked insane. "It's not AI, Jess," I said, looking down at her. "It's the security camera you forgot to turn off. The one that recorded you calling me pathetic in our own home."
I turned to look at her parents. Her mom was sobbing into a napkin. Her dad, Robert, was standing there like a statue, his fists clenched at his sides. He looked broken. I actually felt a pang of pity for him. He was a good man, and he just spent $40,000 to watch his daughter implode. "Robert, Martha," I said, addressing them directly, "I'm sorry. I really am. But the marriage is being annulled first thing Monday morning. As for this party," I gestured around the barn, "I've already called the vendors and the credit card company. I'm disputing every single charge made in my name for fraudulent services. Since the contract states the bride's family covers any cancellations or damages caused by the client, I believe the bill for tonight falls to you." A murmur went through the crowd. And finally, I pointed to the back of the room, where Chris was desperately trying to open the emergency exit door, which was apparently locked or stuck. If anyone wants to congratulate the happy couple, Chris is right there. He's the one who planned this whole thing after all. Seems only fair he gets the girl.
All eyes turned to Chris. He froze, looking like a deer in headlights. Jessica lost it. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. She stopped crying, and her face contorted into pure, ugly rage. "You bastard!" she screamed, her voice shredding her throat. "You petty little piece of shit! You ruined my day! Do you know how much work went into this? You humiliated me! I hate you!" "The feeling is mutual," I said. I dropped the mic, literally. It made a loud thud, followed by a screech of feedback that made everyone wince. I turned my back on her. She tried to grab my jacket, clawing at me, but Dave stepped in. My best man, looking significantly less drunk now that the adrenaline had hit, stiff-armed her like a linebacker.
"Don't touch him," Dave growled. "Stay the hell away from him." I walked off the stage and headed for the main doors. The sea of guests parted for me like I was Moses. No one said a word. They just stared, eyes wide, mouths open. As I reached the doors, I heard a commotion behind me. I glanced back one last time. Robert, Jessica's dad, was moving. He wasn't moving toward me. He was moving toward the back of the room, moving faster than a man his age should be able to move. He was heading straight for Chris. And Chris looked like he was about to wet his pants. I pushed the heavy barn doors open and walked out into the cool night air. I could still hear Jessica screaming my name from inside, a mix of curses and sobbing. "Michael, come back here. You can't do this to me." I didn't stop. I walked straight to Dave's car, where he'd left the keys for me under the mat just in case. I got in, started the engine, and peeled out of the gravel lot. I was technically still married, homeless for the night, and out a deposit on a tuxedo. But as I hit the highway, I felt lighter than I had in years.
I drove for about an hour before the adrenaline finally dumped me. I pulled into the parking lot of a Motel 6 off the interstate, killed the engine, and just sat there. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't get the keys out of the ignition. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I was still wearing my tuxedo. The boutonniere, a white rose, was slightly wilted. I looked ridiculous. I looked like a guy who had just run away from his own wedding, which, technically, I was. I checked into a room. The night clerk gave me a weird look, probably because I was dressed for a gala and paying with a credit card that I prayed hadn't been frozen yet, but he didn't ask questions. Once I was in the room, sitting on the scratchy bedspread, I finally turned my phone screen back on. It was a bloodbath. 47 missed calls, 112 text messages, voicemail box full. Most of the texts were from confused friends. "Dude, what the hell? Are you okay? That was the craziest shit I've ever seen." But the real gold came from Dave, who sent me a long voice note describing what happened after I left.
I played it on speaker. "Bro," Dave's voice crackled, sounding out of breath, "you are a legend, but also holy shit. Okay, so right after you walked out, Robert, Jessica's dad, he caught up to Chris. Chris tried to hide behind a waiter, but Robert just plowed through. He didn't even punch him. He just tackled him into the dessert table. The chocolate fountain went down. It was mayhem." I closed my eyes, picturing it. Chris, covered in fondue, getting pummeled by a 60-year-old accountant. "Security pulled Robert off," Dave continued. "Chris ran out the back door like a rat. I think his nose was broken. Jessica, man, she completely cracked. She started screaming at her parents, saying they didn't protect her. She screamed at the guests for judging her. She was literally standing in the middle of the room, stomping her feet like a toddler, screaming that you were abusive for filming her without consent. No one was buying it. People just grabbed their purses and bailed. The venue manager is threatening to sue for the damage to the table. It's a war zone, Mike. Stay hidden."
I deleted the message. I didn't need to hear any more. Then I saw the voicemails from Jessica. There were 10 of them. I listened to 3. They painted a perfect picture of her mental state.
Voicemail 1, 8:45 p.m. Pure rage. You are dead, Michael. You hear me? You think you're so smart? You just humiliated my entire family. You're a sociopath. I'm going to sue you for defamation. Pick up the phone, you coward. Voicemail 2, 9:15 p.m. Bargaining. Michael, please pick up. Look, we need to talk about this rationally. You misinterpreted the video. It was a one-time thing. I was just scared. Marriage is a big step and I panicked. Chris took advantage of me. I was the victim here. Please, baby, don't throw away 5 years over a mistake. Come back and we can fix this. Voicemail 3, 9:50 p.m. The real Jessica. Fuck you. You never loved me anyway. If you loved me, you wouldn't have embarrassed me. You're just insecure because Chris is twice the man you are. Have fun sleeping alone, loser. I hope you rot. I put the phone down on the nightstand. I went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at the man in the mirror. I looked tired, older than 29. I stripped off the tuxedo, the jacket, the tie, the shirt that felt like it was strangling me. I threw them into the corner of the room in a heap. I took a shower, scrubbing my skin until it was red, trying to wash off the feeling of her hand on my knee, the sound of her lies, the last 6 months of gaslighting. I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought revenge would taste sweet, like they say in the movies. But as I lay in that cheap motel bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt hollow. I had destroyed her, yes. I had nuked the bridge. But I was still the guy whose fiancée fucked the wedding planner. I was still the guy who wasted 5 years on a lie. I pulled the covers up. I didn't cry. I was done crying. I just stared into the dark, waiting for the sun to come up so I could start the paperwork.
Sunday morning broke like a fever. I woke up to the sound of a maid knocking on the door of the neighboring room. For a split second, I reached across the bed for Jessica, but my hand hit the cold, synthetic sheets of the motel. Then, the weight of the universe came crashing back down on my chest. I wasn't a husband. I was a meme. I checked my phone. One new voicemail from Robert, Jessica's dad. I braced myself for a lawsuit threat or a screaming match. Instead, his voice sounded like he had aged 20 years overnight. Michael, it's Robert. Look, I don't even know what to say. I am so sorry. For everything. For her behavior, for the scene, for everything. I want you to know I've handled the venue. I wrote them a check this morning. You won't hear from them. As for Jessica, she's at our house. We're dealing with her. Just call me when you're ready. You're a good man, son. You didn't deserve this.
I actually teared up. The guy had just lost a fortune and his daughter's reputation, and he was apologizing to me. But I didn't have time to wallow. I had logistics. My dog, Buster, was still at our apartment. My clothes, my computer, my passport, everything was there. And I knew Jessica. When she hurts, she wants to break things. I called Dave. I need one more favor. We need to go to the apartment, and I'm calling the non-emergency line for a civil standby. An hour later, I met Dave and a police officer outside my building. I wasn't taking any chances with false accusations. Jessica had already proven she could lie about anything. We went up. I unlocked the door, my heart hammering. The apartment was a wreck. It wasn't just messy, it was malicious. Wedding gifts were smashed on the floor. My gaming PC monitor had a heel-sized hole in it. Photos were ripped off the walls. And sitting on the couch, the infamous couch, was Jessica. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, eating cereal directly out of the box. She didn't look remorseful. She looked annoyed.
When she saw the cop, her eyes narrowed. "Really, Michael," she scoffed, spraying crumbs. "You brought the cops? You're such a drama queen. I live here too, you know." "Not for long," I said, stepping over a shattered face. "Officer, I'm just here to get my personal effects and my dog." "Buster's in the crate," she said, waving a spoon dismissively. He wouldn't shut up, just like his owner. I went to the back room. Buster was there, cowering in his crate. The poor dog was shaking.
I let him out, and he immediately peed on the floor from nerves before jumping into my arms. I handed his leash to Dave. "Take him to the car, please." I spent the next 20 minutes packing a duffel bag under the watchful eye of the officer. Jessica sat on the couch the entire time, launching verbal grenades. "You know everyone thinks you're a psycho, right?" she said, her voice dripping with venom. "I've been texting people all morning, telling them how controlling you were, how you doctored that video. People believe me, Michael. I'm the bride. You're just the jealous ex."
Save it for the judge, Jess, I said, grabbing my birth certificate from the filing cabinet. Chris is going to sue you, you know, she continued, desperate for a reaction. My dad broke his nose. We're going to sue my dad, and we're going to sue you for invasion of privacy. Chris and I are going to be laughing all the way to the bank. I stopped packing. I turned and looked at her. Really looked at her. Jessica, I said calmly, Chris isn't going to sue anyone. I saw his face last night. He's a coward. And as for you, you don't get it, do you? You're not the victim. You're the villain in 150 people's stories today. There is no spin where you win this. I always win, she hissed, standing up. I'm Jessica Miller. No, I said, zipping up my bag. You're Jessica Evans. You never legally became a Miller. I didn't sign the marriage license. Her face went white.
That was my ace in the hole. In the chaos of the reception, before the speeches, the officiant had asked us to sign the license. Jessica had signed hers with a flourish. I had pretended to sign mine, but the pen was capped. I pocketed the document for safekeeping. It was currently sitting in the glove box of Dave's car, unsigned and invalid. We aren't married, I told her, watching the realization wash over her. There's no divorce. There's no division of assets. There's no alimony. This lease is in my name. You have 30 days to vacate, or I'm filing for eviction. I turned to the officer. I'm all set, sir. You bastard, she shrieked, lunging at me. The officer stepped between us, hand raised. Ma'am, step back. Do not escalate this. She stopped, chest heaving, staring daggers at me. I hope you die alone, Michael. Better alone than with you, I said. I walked out the door, bag over my shoulder, leaving her standing in the wreckage of the life she destroyed. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders so heavy I almost floated down the stairs. I had my dog, I had my freedom, and I had the satisfaction of knowing that for once in her life, Jessica didn't get what she wanted. Now, I just had to figure out what the hell to do with the rest of my life. It's been 4 months since the red wedding, as Dave likes to call it. I wish I could say everything went back to normal the second I walked out of that apartment, but real life isn't a movie. The fallout was radioactive. The first month was a blur of legal threats and harassment. Jessica didn't go quietly. She tried one last desperate Hail Mary about 2 weeks after I moved out. She showed up at my workplace, looking like a wreck, screaming that she was pregnant. She caused a massive scene in the lobby, crying to the receptionist that I was abandoning my unborn child. For a second, my heart stopped. I thought, oh God, am I tied to this woman forever? But then I remembered, we hadn't slept together in 3 months before the wedding. Unless the baby was the second coming of Christ, it wasn't mine. It was either Chris's, or more likely, it didn't exist.
I walked down to the lobby, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Great, I'll call a paternity test clinic right now. If it's mine, I'll pay support. If it's not, I'm filing a restraining order." She stopped crying instantly. The switch flipped. "You're a monster," she spat. Then she turned around and walked out. I never heard about the baby again. It was just another lie, another manipulation. Where is everyone now? Chris. His career in this town is dead. Word travels fast in the wedding industry. Robert, Jessica's dad, didn't even have to sue him. The rumor mill did the work. I heard from a friend of a friend that Chris moved back to Ohio to live with his parents. Good riddance. Jessica. She was evicted from the apartment 30 days after I left. She tried to squat, but the landlord, who had seen the viral TikTok video of the wedding, someone recorded it, wasn't having it. She's currently living with a cousin 3 towns over. She blocked me on everything, but not before sending a Venmo request for $5,000 for emotional distress.
I declined it with a laughing emoji.
Surprisingly, Jessica's dad and I still talk. We grabbed a beer last week. It was awkward at first, but he apologized again. He told me he cut Jessica off financially until she gets therapy and a job. He's a good man who raised a bad daughter. It happens. I'm okay. I'm living in a smaller place with Buster. I'm in therapy, trying to untangle the mess of trust issues Jessica left me with. I haven't dated anyone. I can't even look at a dating app without feeling nauseous. But I'm sleeping through the night. I'm not walking on eggshells in my own home. I'm breathing. So, what did I learn? If there is anyone out there reading this who has that nagging feeling in the pit of their stomach, that little voice saying something isn't right, listen to it. Here is my advice to anyone in a relationship that feels off. Red flags look like butterflies if you squint hard enough. Don't squint. If she's hiding her phone, if she's suddenly too tired for intimacy but buying new lingerie, if she's gaslighting you into thinking you're crazy for asking questions, you aren't crazy. You're being played.
Privacy is not secrecy. Everyone deserves privacy. But if they are guarding their phone like it contains the nuclear launch codes, that's secrecy. There is a difference. Don't ignore the disrespect. The cheating was the finale, but the disrespect started way before that. The snapping at me, the belittling, the bridezilla excuse. If your partner treats you like an accessory or an inconvenience, the cheating is just a matter of time. Have an exit strategy. I'm lucky I had Dave, and I'm lucky I had separate finances. If we had been fully merged, this would have been a nightmare of forensic accounting. Always keep a get-out-of-hell fund. Scorched earth works, but it leaves soot on you too. Blowing up the wedding felt good in the moment. It was justice, but it was also traumatic. I don't regret it because she needed to be exposed, but walking away with your head high is sometimes better than burning the building down. I'm 29. I'm single. I have a dog, a slightly dented credit score, and a story that buys me free drinks at any bar I walk into. I survived, and if you're going through this, you will too. Just make sure you check the security cameras first. Cheers, Reddit. I'm logging off.